2023 tax season is behind us, and now we can take a vacation until next January. Right? Right? We can take a vacation now? Please? Overall, this past busy season wasn't that bad. We didn't have to worry about collecting economic impact payment information or child tax credit advance information. Thank you. But I still feel like I worked way too much. I actually know how much I worked this busy season because I tracked my time. It's not what you think, I promise. I was really only trying to track how much time I was spending on client work, admin work, and content creation. But what I actually got was how much time I spent on Twitter. Let's not talk about that. Next year, I have the goal of working less hours, and I will have something I can actually compare it to. So how many hours did I work over the past 4 months? In January, I averaged 47 work hours each week, and the long hours didn't really start until the middle of January. February, the average hours was 52 hours every week. In March, was 56 hours every week. First week of April, I only worked 49 hours, and then the week before the deadline, I was actually only working less than 40 hours. Those hours don't count all the time I was on social media and just the personal time that I had while I was working, like break time. So I probably ended up sitting at the computer way longer than those hours, but you get a feel for hours I had to spend working. If you're wondering how I track my time, I use this really cool app called Rize with a Z. You can get a free month using my referral link in the video description. Next year, I want to set the goal of working 50 hours or less each week. 50 hours is still a lot, but it would be a huge improvement over the current average. So my work days would usually begin at 4:30 a.m., have coffee at 7:30, work, take a breakfast break at 10, work out and lunch at 12 for about an hour and a half, and then back to work till about 5. Compared to 2022 tax busy season, I worked way fewer nights. Next year it'd be great if I could wake up at 5:30 instead of 4:30 every morning. That's actually really sad to say out loud. But that would still make a huge quality of life difference in my opinion. So how many returns did I end up preparing? I prepared 91 returns. Of that, 80 were personal, 2 were trusts, 8 S-corps, and 1 partnership. I extended 56 returns. Of that, 42 were personal, 11 S-corps, 4 partnerships, and 1 trust. There's still a lot of work to do, and I think I have too many clients. Now, of all those returns that I prepared, a handful were prepared by my contractor Brian, and about 35 returns I had assistance with an offshore team for preparing tax returns. The average personal return was $850, and the average business return was $2,100. Not bad. Let's talk about the future. One big decision I need to make for next year is to either cut clients or hire a full-time tax preparer. I'd love to hire someone with at least a few years of experience and maybe wants to run their own firm one day. Either way, I need way more capacity because next year I don't want to shut down my life during busy season. One thing I want to get rid of is that paralyzing feeling where you feel like you have to say no to everything, like no fun, no hanging out, no seeing family, no seeing friends. I only have so much mental capacity to feel like I can do things outside of work, and working a crap ton of hours eats up all that space. So new this year is I used an offshore team, and I'm not going to disclose the company yet. Overall, it was a positive experience. For the most part, the offshore preparers could get the return about 75% completed. And then some returns, they were actually 100% complete to where I reviewed everything and I was like, hey, this is good. There's no changes needed. Overall, I think it saved me at least an hour of prep time per client. So thinking about it, the cost was really high for it, but it probably helped with my sanity over the last 4 months. One downside is if there was any like critical thinking involved with the tax return, then that's where the preparers floundered and couldn't really connect the dots. Another downside is you can't really train because you work with almost a new preparer each time, and so you can't be like, hey, can you do this next time? You can only make notes for them to look at, and they'll follow your instructions, or hopefully they'll follow your instructions. Sometimes just like, well, not sure why you did that, but that's probably the case with all preparers, honestly. Let's take some questions that I got from Twitter. Omar asked, how did you handle dropping return due to pending information and then picking it back up again? It consumes so much time. Yeah, this is like the bane of my existence, starting a return and stopping a return. And so one thing that I really did this year is to really make sure that all the documents were in before I started the return. And with the software that I use, I'm able to compare, what was used last year really easily. And then I can look in their documents and be like, okay, yes, they have everything there. But, some things fell through where they're like, yeah, I have everything. And here's all the documents, and the documents were completely wrong. And so, there's a lot of start-stop. It's something that, to get all your tax documents and not have to ask for open items is a unicorn these days. And I can pretty much just expect to drop a return and have to ask questions to the client to complete the return. Jason Stats asks, say that 3 times fast. Any pants this year or just 50 Shades of Black shorts? Well, pretty much shorts. No pants. McGregor Tax and Accounting asks, what did you anticipate would be your greatest strength and biggest weakness, and what did it end up being? I feel like my biggest strength was kind of knowing what to expect this tax season, and so that helped my mental anxiety be a lot lower, and I could, I knew I wasn't gonna need new work for this busy season, so I didn't have to add any clients. Biggest weakness was probably not knowing how the offshore team would work, but it actually ended up working really well. So Greg Marks asks about any solo retirement plans I'm using. I'm just doing Roth IRAs for me and my wife right now, so not really much. Curtis asks, it would be great to see a tech stack recap and how you plan to improve. Okay, well, how about I plan a video sometime later this year to answer that question. Anvi asks, based on how this tax season went, what changes are you planning to make for the next tax season? So really, I'd love to hire a full-time employee. That's the biggest change. And that's gonna change everything, I feel like. So I'm really excited about that if I actually go through with it, or I can just fire on my client. Carlos asks, how did you deal with clients sending info at the very last minute and not wanting an extension? Because of this, did you fire some in the process? So I only did this for one client, and it wasn't really that late. Other than that, all my clients know when their information needs to be in on time, and I didn't really have anybody ask hey, can you really file this by the deadline? Everyone had the right expectation going into tax busy season. And so I didn't really encounter any of that. And so I'm not firing anybody because of that. Jeremy asks, if you ended up outsourcing some return preparation, how did it go? It was awesome. It was actually it ended up being a really good thing, because I accidentally got my contractor stuck on some prior year returns. So he was kind of MIA working on those. So the offshore team, I gave them, about 35 returns. Overall, I think it was a success. Michael asks, more information on the numbers of tax clients fired and new tax clients for 2023. I already explained the tax clients. The end of last year, I fired about 30-ish clients. Really what happened was I increased the pricing by a lot, and with the expectation that a good amount of them would leave. So I wasn't intentionally trying to fire them. It's just their pricing was more aligned to when I started my firm versus now. And so I was trying to bump them up quite a bit to get to my new pricing, the new market rate. For the number of new tax clients I had, between last year and this year, I probably had, about 20 to 30 new clients. So kind of evened out with the number of clients between each year. Nicholas asks, after a couple of busy seasons on your own now, do you feel any differently with regards to scaling your firm up and adding employees or partners, or sticking with how things are now? I'm entertaining the idea of a full-time employee. I'm not 100% there yet. I think I've evolved with how I'm thinking about this. So I've gone back and forth on how big I want to grow my firm and if I want to have employees. When I first started, I was like, yeah, I want a big firm. But then as I was working, I was like, oh man, if I had employees on top of this, how do I do that? And now I'm at the point, well, okay, I'm at capacity. I don't want to add any new clients unless something changes, like I cut a bunch of clients to be able to replace them, or do I hire somebody or get another contractor to help out? And so I think I'm more along the lines of hiring an employee to help out for the full year, because I think that would be a game changer for quality of life. So I think I'm like set on that path now, Nicholas. Mara asks, were you able to improve your work-life balance? I think yes. I think definitely that is a yes. So I pretty much didn't work evenings this year compared to last year. Last year I'd probably work in the evening 3 to 4 times a week. And so it'd be like after I put the girls down around 7-ish, I would come in the office and work for 1 to 2 hours. And I didn't do that this year. And I think that is definitely noticeable. Okay, so one more question from Evan. One thing I'm curious is if you get any kind of incentives or penalties for clients who deliver information early versus late. Thanks, love the content you share. Thank you for that. So Evan, I would say I don't give any incentives or penalties other than you just have to have your return extended. That's, I guess, a pseudo penalty for not getting your information in on time. I'm against letting clients pay like a rush fee to have their return prepared on time, just because now you have to prepare that return and there's that expectation that it will be prepared on time, and it just like stresses you out tremendously. And then one thing I'm doing new this year is I have a very early information cutoff date for business returns and personal returns. So it's like the middle of summer. And so if you don't give me their information by then, expect your return to be filed late. So I guess that's a penalty. And I'm hoping what this does is really encourage the clients that I have left to file to get me their information on time. Because last year I had a bunch of work at the last minute because I didn't manage that very well. I didn't manage the workload and projects very well and expectations. And so I got slammed last fall. By slammed, it was like 40 hours a week, but it was still like not fun. And it's very stressful. Thank you all so much for those questions. If you feel like you've made an improvement to your work-life balance, tax pro or not, please let me know in the comments. And one thing I'm super excited about is trying to push a bunch of content this summer, tax related, specifically tax related. And so let me know if there's any type of videos that you would like me to make. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.